So we all know that feeling, right? Pushing ourselves, going that extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
And you, our listener, you're always looking to understand things more deeply. So you've probably, bumped into this whole idea of working super hard.
Yeah, it's almost
Wow.
universally admired, isn't it? Which is, well, precisely why we want to dig a bit deeper today.
Exactly. See what's really going on underneath.
Right.
So in this deep dive, we're definitely not just taking working super hard at face value. We're using this really fascinating framework called psychedelic thought architect.
Which sounds intriguing in itself.
It is. Think of it as a way to sort of unlock fresh perspectives, connect ideas in maybe surprising ways.
Okay.
And the sources we're looking at, they really aim to dissolve some assumptions, maybe reveal some unexpected truths about what really happens when we push ourselves to the limit.
And what I find compelling is that it's not just about like the mechanics of logging hours.
No.
It really gets into the psychology, the philosophy behind that relentless drive. Why do we do it?
Which brings us right to the big question, the one we want to explore with you today. Is working super hard always a good thing? Always beneficial?
Mm-hmm. When we're sacrificing sleep, letting work bleed into, well, everything, what's the real impact?
What are we actually doing? Okay, let's try and unpack this.
Yeah, let's start by maybe questioning the concept itself. Super hard work. What does that even mean?
Good starting point.
Our source material really pushes us to look at the different facets of that intensity. Is it purely physical exhaustion we're talking about?
Or that mental drain after hours of just intense focus.
Right, or the emotional cost, that constant pressure. Or is it just the sheer volume of time you put in?
Or maybe even how much we neglect ourselves, Self-abandonment almost.
That's a really vital distinction, isn't it? Because super hard, physically, is completely different from super hard mentally.
Totally different.
And both are different, again, from the emotional energy you might pour into something.
And the source, it really challenges this cultural value we seem to place on just sheer effort.
Is it really about achieving mastery? Or has it become like a performance of suffering?
Ooh, that's interesting. A performance.
Yeah, like a way to signal just how much we're sacrificing.
And if you look at it historically, the source sort of suggests this idealization of nonstop effort might be a hangover from industrial capitalism.
Makes sense. Where output was directly tied to hours worked.
Exactly. That equation, effort equals worth. It's become so deeply ingrained in how we think as a society.
But is it still relevant? Or even helpful today? That's the question.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because the source starts drawing these unexpected parallels.
Okay, like what?
Well, the first one that really grabbed me was connecting physics, actual physics, with our mindset about work.
Physics. How does that work?
Well, we tend to think of hard work in a very Newtonian way, right?
Force over distance equals work. Simple.
Right. Apply force, push the thing, get a result, more force, more work. But then it introduces this kind of quantum perspective.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Quantum work. Sort of. What if truly impactful, super hard work isn't about that visible brute force? What if it's more like creating an almost invisible entanglement?
Entanglement between what?
Between your intention and the outcome you want. Maybe requiring less obvious effort, but much more concentrated, focused energy.
Huh. So less about just pushing the boulder, more about tuning into the right frequency.
Exactly. It's like the key insight there is that impactful work might be less about just relentless activity and more about strategically focusing your intention.
Yeah.
Like tuning an instrument, rather than just brute force.
That's a real mind bender, shifting from just straining to precisely directing energy.
It is. And then there's this other fascinating juxtaposition, asceticism and ambition.
Okay, ascetics like monks and ambition like founders. They seem like total opposites.
They really do on the surface. You've got ancient monks, ascetics, deliberately denying themselves, comforts, often seeking a kind of self-erasure.
Right, dissolving the self.
And then you have modern, ambitious entrepreneurs, maybe driven towards self-immortalization through what they build, creating a legacy.
Building the self up, making it last.
But the source points out the shared intensity. The fasting, the solitude for the monk, the all-consuming hours, the singular focus for the founder. It's the same level of dedication.
Wow, okay, so this working super hard, this intense devotion, it could be driven by wanting to lose yourself or make yourself permanent.
Or maybe some strange mix of both. It really makes you question the underlying drives, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. What's really going on there?
And this brings up a really crucial point about the link between Well, pain and devotion.
Pain and devotion, how so?
The source explores this idea that for some people, the difficulty itself, the struggle involved in the work, becomes a kind of currency.
A currency, like you pay with pain.
In a way, the more they endure, the more valuable the result feels, and maybe the more worthy they feel.
Ah, okay, I can see that.
It points to this almost archetypal figure, the martyr of achievement in our modern work culture.
Oh yeah, the person who wears burnout like a badge of honor.
Exactly. That subtle bragging about being busy, the competitive lack of sleep you mentioned earlier.
Right, right. And then kind of switching gears again, we look at art and engineering.
Which you might not immediately link with, like grueling labor in the same way.
No, not always.
But the source brings in the concept of flow.
Ah, flow state.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about that.
Right, that state where you're so completely absorbed, so into what you're doing, that the intense effort paradoxically just dissolves. It disappears.
It doesn't feel hard anymore.
Exactly. It stops feeling like a struggle. It transforms into something else, a kind of ritual, maybe even a form of ecstasy. The work itself becomes deeply engaging, fulfilling.
Like a musician totally lost in the music or a coder deep in the zone,
Yeah.
ours just vanish.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've looked at these different angles, these surprising connections. What are the common threads? What patterns start to emerge when we look at working super hard this way?
Well, the source identifies several key recurring elements. One is definitely time distortion.
Right, the long hours, messed up sleep, blurred boundaries.
Yeah, that feeling that work is always there. Then there's something called identity fusion,
Identity fusion.
where your work becomes so tied up with who you are that stopping or even just slowing down feels like you're losing a part of yourself.
That sounds intense and potentially dangerous.
It can be. And then, as we touched on, that sacrifice aura, romanticizing burnout.
Making it seem noble.
We also often see this control hunger, this deep desire to force outcomes, to bend reality through sheer willpower and effort.
Like if I just work harder, I can control this.
Exactly. And underlying a lot of this, there's often this powerful belief in redemption.
Redemption, how so?
The sort of background idea that if we just push hard enough, suffer enough, we will finally earn the things we deeply want.
Like recognition or success or freedom or even just peace.
Yeah, or love or transcendence,
Yeah.
whatever the ultimate prize is believed to be. And all these patterns, these threads, according to the source, they point towards this underlying cultural algorithm.
An algorithm.
Yeah, like a hidden program running. If I push myself far enough, I will finally be enough.
Whew, that hits hard. I will be enough.
It's a really potent and potentially quite harmful underlying belief.
Okay. So we've dissected the concept, looked at these unexpected links, identified the patterns. What's the core insight? Where does this leave us? What's the crystallized takeaway?
Well, the central idea seems to be that working super hard often involves this really profound merging of your inner life, your thoughts, feelings, identity with your external output, your work.
So it's more than just the physical or mental labor.
Much more. It's described as an existential submission to a goal, even a voluntary distortion or reshaping of yourself in service of becoming something or achieving something.
Okay, so it's less about the intensity of the work itself.
And more about the nature of that work and the purpose behind it. Who or what are you submitting to? What are you trying to become?
That completely reframes it. It's not just about the hours clocked.
Not at all. The source really emphasizes that genuine transformation, real effectiveness, it doesn't just come from exerting more effort necessarily.
Right?
It comes from refining the essence and the purpose of the work itself.
Okay.
And from that understanding, we get these three sort of key insights. First, the alchemy of effort lies not in its intensity, but in its alignment.
Alignment, meaningful effort pointed in the right direction for you, is more powerful than just brute force.
Precisely. Which leads straight to the second point. Super hard work without soul is burnout.
If there's no meaning, no connection, just grinding, you just run out of fuel.
Absolutely. It inevitably leads to exhaustion, depletion.
Okay, and the third insight.
And conversely, super hard work with soul is transcendence.
So when that intense effort is aligned, when it connects to something you genuinely care about.
It can lead to profound personal growth, real fulfillment, becomes transformative, not just draining.
That's a really powerful distinction. Work with soul versus without soul.
Exactly. And to really kind of anchor this idea, the source gives us this very striking metaphor.
Okay, what is it?
It says, working super hard is like building a temple out of your own bones.
Wow. That's a visceral. Building a temple from your own bones, it really captures the personal cost.
It does. And it leads directly to this critical question, the one we really want you, the listener, to maybe reflect on in your own life. Is the God you're serving even real?
Is the God you're serving real? Meaning, what are you actually sacrificing for? What's the ultimate aim you're dedicating all this intense effort towards? Is it worth the bones?
Mm-hmm. Is it truly worthy of that level of devotion, that level of self-sacrifice?
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? About the daily grind, the pressure.
It does.
So if there's one central thing to take away from this deep dive, it seems to be that true effectiveness and maybe true satisfaction in our work, it might not come from just pushing harder and harder.
Exactly. It seems to be much more about understanding those deeper motivations, really examining what drives us, and then consciously aligning our efforts with a purpose that genuinely resonates, something that feels authentic.
So as you go about your day, your week, we really encourage you to maybe reflect on your own relationship with hard work.
Yeah, consider what God, what goal, what ideal, what expectation you might be building your temple for.
And maybe the real challenge isn't always about working harder.
Perhaps not. Perhaps the real challenge is discerning what's truly worth that intense, bone-deep effort in the first place.
Definitely something to ponder long after this conversation ends.